La plus grande de nos richesses ne se mesure pas en millions. Nous vous faisons découvrir des ovnis pour vous permettre d'en devenir un, vous aussi. Sportifs, entrepreneurs, artistes, ils nous partagent chaque semaine leurs récits de véritables trésors d'informations.
Mathieu, that's what we say in French. So we're recording now, Bilal. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome in France. Welcome in Paris. When did you get here?
Thank you. Just a few days ago.
A few days ago.
Beautiful, just before Tour de France.
Yeah. Oh, so you saw the arrival?
I was staying in Montmartre area and went right by. It was beautiful.
Amazing.
My first time.
First time in France or in Paris?
No, second or third time in France. First time seeing the Tour de France.
All right.
That was unexpected surprise. It was like a gift given to me. It's great.
So you're, I've heard you're a rock star investor, huh? Back here when people talk about you, at least in the deep tech area. Have you ever invested in a French company?
I have not invested in a French company. I've invested in a bunch of European companies.
Okay.
I've been doing deep tech investing for 16 years.
16 years, my God. What was deep tech back in 2009?
It was not very popular.
All right.
There were a few believers who believed that deep technology innovations are necessary for computing to really move forward. In fact, that's been the history of computing, right? Like every decade, you have a new innovation that completely moves the world forward. In the early days of that innovation, few people take a chance until it becomes more clear that, hey, this is here to stay. And that's when every other VC comes in, and it's great. In the early days, 16, 17 years ago, deep tech was limited mostly to semiconductor technologies and biotechnology.
All right.
And then a few other things got added on. So people started to work on energy, clean energy, solar, batteries, biofuels. Then people started thinking about hardware, software systems, defense tech systems, medical devices, diagnostics. And slowly people realized that, this is big enough of a field that you need specialists, people who really understand it well.
Yeah, but because you had, what you say is that you had two fields at the very beginning, and then it's like, 6, 7, 9, 10, as many as you want, actually.
Yeah, and these are entire industries, a very large part of our GDP. In the US, deep tech refers to probably $10 to $15 trillion of our economy. And I wish we were doing more deep tech investing, to be honest.
So what was called deep tech back in 2009, most of it is not deep anymore, is it?
Yeah. So in 2009, a few things were happening simultaneously. One was a focus on climate change.
Already.
And so a lot of technologies starting 2006 and 7 were focused on, hey, this climate change is happening. How do we invest in clean tech?
That's very interesting because, as it became something big, you'll probably be able to tell me later in this podcast what you're looking for right now that's going to be big in 15 years.
Oh, so we hope. Yeah. So we hope. But at that point, a lot of people believed that the economy was changing fast. Internet had commoditized a lot of markets. It was looking very hard to make money with the internet, right? I mean, you had a few public companies like Amazon and eBay, Google, but it wasn't that easy to start the next company in the internet space. And people were looking for what's the big market. And people thought, hey, everybody buys fuel. Everybody drives cars. We need energy, that we consume every day.
100%.
So it's a very large market. We should be building technologies that can transform those markets. So Cleantech 1.0, as it's called, was born there. And a lot of people were investing in that. That was not very successful for a lot of people. But some of the most interesting companies came out of it. I mean, one of the world's largest companies is Tesla.
Yeah.
Right. And transformed the automotive industry and came out of that clean tech movement.
Interesting.
And many others, Nest Thermostat. It's a big success company.
Yeah. Google right now, right?
Yeah. If you go to buy diesel, at least in the US, at least 10% to 20% of that diesel is going to be biodiesel. So that came out of there. Solar revolution happened. And in certain parts of the world, solar is growing much faster than any other form of energy.
Yeah.
So that was big. So I think, a lot of good came out of it. But the most important thing was a realization that you can build tech businesses that are, high margin, fast growth, high multiples on exits, basically venture-backed businesses that can be built. We learned from our mistakes how to do it right. And that led to the movement that then became hardware, software systems, people investing in deep tech 2.0, which included a lot of work around construction, advanced manufacturing, automotive, defense tech, and so on.
What was the mistake? What were the mistakes? You just said we learned a lot from our mistakes. The biggest ones, or
I think while we can talk a lot about the different industries that people invested in that did not have the right characteristics, did not have the right margin structure. For example, if you're buying a commodity, like you buy corn in the store, most consumers don't care where the corn comes from. They just care for the price of corn.
Yeah.
And unless there's regulation that forces you to make corn a certain way, you will buy the cheapest corn or the best tasting corn. You're not going to care that it was produced necessarily in environmentally beneficial ways. And a lot of things that were commodities were very hard to market to customers. Energy is one part of it. Like, we're consuming energy, but we don't really know how much of it was derived from wind or solar or nuclear or, most likely, thermochemical plants like, coal or whatever, natural gas. So that was one realization, that we should invest in companies where you can have a differentiation. Like, when you buy an Apple phone, that it's a different phone than an Android phone, right? So that's where technology wins. You use Facebook, looks very different than Twitter. And so you're like, I like Facebook better, I like Twitter better, or I like TikTok better, or I like Tinder better, or whatever it is. Things that are non-differentiated are hard to sell. But actually another big lesson that we learned was that we used to think at that time that these technologies are extremely complex, right? There's a lot of technical risk in these companies. It may not work. Or how do you sell? How do you package? How do you price? So we went and invested in founders that had 10, 20, 30 years of experience working in those industries. So a lot of the CEOs back then of those companies were hired who had spent a lot of time at Shell or General Electric or Total, right? They knew that industry really well, the industry they would come from. But the one problem was that they weren't very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, they
didn't have founder DNA.
Large incomes,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we ended up backing often, good and right technologies, but the wrong teams. And in fact, you see that a lot of car companies that were funded at that time did not succeed because they had executives that had come from the automotive industry.
But do you believe, you obviously tell me about Elon Musk, but do you believe that you can create a car industry, a car company, like when you're 24 and you've never been working in the car industry?
Yes, I actually believe that. Now
What about the Chinese companies? All of those.
So Chinese companies are. There wasn't a Chinese car industry. There was not even a very big Chinese solar or wind industry. Chinese learned fast. In fact, a lot of Chinese CEOs, if you meet, they're fairly young. I think you can, that doesn't mean that in your company you don't hire experts. For supply chain, you hire a supply chain expert. For pricing, you will hire a pricing expert. Elon Musk is not sitting there doing primary engineering designs, right? But you need somebody who understands that startups win against incumbents, not necessarily because they have the best technology, but because they move fast. Right? And because they move fast, they quickly start accumulating a lot of currency around them. There's a lot of people who start believing that this thing is moving so fast, let me get onto this rocket ship, or let me get onto this train. Let me try it, let me practice it. You give them product, you give them new products, new features. So every time you use that product, you see something new. You're like, this is great, this is getting better. Think of your own use of ChatGPT, right? Every big incumbent right now, Google, Meta, everybody, Anthropic, Mistral, everybody has, LLMs and, similar service. But some of these companies, depending on your taste and your interest, they're just much better than others, and they're moving so fast, right? They used to be text, then they became photos, then they became videos. Whereas some of the bigger companies, people who invented this field, like Google, was effectively, from a commercial point of view, was way ahead of any of these guys. But they just moved slow, almost to the point where they were scared that they could be left behind. So I think speed matters, and I think founders get that. Founders just move fast.
Is that something that is still very important to you today?
100%.
100%.
100%.
In the deep tech area, my understanding sometimes is that it moves slower than some of the software industry, more traditional, because, you still have more research, you still have a longer go-to-market. Is that right, wrong? And still what you say, it's just you have to move smarter than the rest of the industry. But
every industry would have a certain cadence, a certain way things are done, a certain speed at which you bring new products to market or introduce them. Founders come in and they just have to go faster than everybody else. So you cannot compare a online consumer internet startup and this pace at which they can create the product and ship the product to the way you would ship a car. But the online startup that's doing consumer internet dating app, they have to move faster than all other dating apps. They have to give new ideas, new product features, new marketing ideas. And if you do that, you start to look and run ahead of all the other companies in your space. In the automotive industry, you have to do exactly the same thing. You have to run faster and harder than the other automotive industries. Like the reason people buy Tesla. So let me give you an example of Tesla. You brought it up. Forget about Elon. Elon's amazing in his own way, also crazy in his own way. If you think about that company as a car, like as a mechanical car, I would argue it's not better than any other car company. Like its doors are not better, its windows are not better, seats are not as comfortable as a German or a French car or a Japanese car. But what is better is its software.
100%.
Right? If you take the market cap of Tesla,
better.
If you take the market cap of Tesla divided by the number of cars they sell every year,
insane.
It is that number you get is about 10 times the same number for a Mercedes or a BMW. And it's not because of the metal, it is because of the software. You sit in a car, you have amazing experience, right? Like it's your maps work better, your music integration works better, your Spotify works better. Every other car company, I'm always like connecting it, Apple Play, Bluetooth, maybe it'll work. Tesla, you just go. Right? A simple thing that you never have to start your car. Like that was not a thing in a car. You first always sat in a car. What is the first thing you do? Press a button or turn the key to start the car. Now the car is turned on. Now you can move.
Yeah.
Tesla, you sit in a car and just go. Right? It's a simple thing.
Yeah, it's very simple.
But it's amazing. Once you use it, it's like this is amazing.
And do you think you can still go fast while you're growing? Is Tesla still fast? Are you still fast?
I think Tesla is still fast. And the reason is, again, the founder DNA really matters. And founder DNA doesn't mean that you have to have been the founder from the beginning. In some companies, that's true. You could be an executive, but you could have a very founder entrepreneurial DNA. And if you have that, you would be willing to break things. The best example that people use, or one of the examples that people use, is Steve Jobs. If you remember, iPod was selling well, right? We all had iPods.
Yeah.
I had an iPod, then I had an iPod Nano, and it was a little device. You'd buy it for $100 or whatever.
Yeah, I still find some iPod in my house.
There you go.
I didn't even remember I had this blue, very little thing, right? Yeah.
And Steve Jobs was notorious for killing products so that you could get the next product. Right? He would just say, yep, we had a iPod. We got the new version of iPod. The old one's not available. Then he got the iPod Nano. Then you couldn't buy iPod. He's like, no, I know you like the bigger thing, but we don't sell that anymore.
Yeah.
We just on to the next product. Founders can do that. Non-founders have a harder time with innovator's dilemma because something is selling. So they start optimizing on that. And they try to figure out, how do we optimize how to sell that even more or even better or make more profits off of it. Entrepreneurialism requires you to say, okay, that's selling well. What's next? Jeff Bezos talks about it where he says, I don't think about revenues for the next year or 2 years. There are other people in my organization that are responsible for that. I think about what Amazon looks like, when he was a CEO at least, what Amazon looks like 2-3 years out.
I'm so jealous. I so want to be that guy. Are you still fast, Bilal?
I try to be, and I think the way you do that is by, forcing yourself to do uncomfortable things.
Is it important to be fast as an investor?
It is extremely important to be fast. In fact, I have 4 core values in my company. And so I'll give you an example of being fast. I was comfortably working at one of the large funds. Mm-hmm. I could have just continued to work there or work at another large fund. And I said, the way the world moves fast and do new things and try new things is by, becoming smaller and trying something new. So I started a new venture fund to do exactly that. My 4 core values are curiosity, intensity, integrity, and humility, right? Curiosity, because the world is changing so fast, we can learn new things all the time. Intensity is the speed at which you move. It's like put everything into it. We have, as investors and as tech observers, we have the front row seat to the best show, to the most exciting show on earth. Okay?
Yeah, I'm just writing it down. I'm going to take those.
Yeah, what else could you be doing at this point? Like, I'm here in Paris, vacationing, beautiful place, amazing food, stroll down whatever avenue you want. But then I get a chance to meet you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all that can wait. Let me go do this. Because I will meet you and, you've done an amazing job building what you've built here, both as, what you do with the media, but also with the fund. Can't give that up. And then integrity and humility are equally important. So curiosity and intensity make you a good investor. Integrity and humility makes you a good human. Mm. And I think the world where it's going and how important technology has become to basically everything we do in life, we need to not only be good investors, but we also need to be good humans.
It's very hard. I find it very hard sometimes to be intense and how do you say integrity. I mean, and human. And I mean, sometimes when you're intense, people are. I mean, you're after people. You know what I'm saying? You're like intense, right? And I think it's the toughest part to balance the intensity, because you don't want to balance it too much. I mean, you want to be intense, right?
I think integrity and humanity doesn't mean that you're not intense. I think people have to understand what are your values that you hold dear. Mm. So if you work for Elon Musk, right? He's very blunt about his values. Mm. I mean, he is thinking big ideas, right? You and I may agree or disagree with his ideas, but he wants man to build a colony on Mars, right? Like he wants us to be, multiplanetary species. Yeah.
Probably a chip in the brain, right?
Put chip in a brain and many things. I mean, all his companies are, well known to people. And he's like, we have to move at lightning speed to get there. I mean, obviously his own life, he knows that he's only going to live so long. Mm. But it's more than that, right? Like it's he knows that it's so difficult to do that if he doesn't put everything into it, if he doesn't risk everything, it's not going to happen. Mm. He's known for risking all his money by putting it all into SpaceX and Tesla. Again, in recent, last 6-9 months with the politics, right? He put everything, all of his credibility online for what he believed in. So if you agree with him, then you know his values and then you align with them. And then he's very intense about it, right? If you don't agree with him, then you will feel that he's just a jerk.
Yeah. I'm not sure... well, at least humanity is within his core values. I don't know. What do you think about that, actually?
I think he has, we all have different things we aspire to. Without commenting on whatever kind of childhood he had or upbringing or whatever he had, clearly, there's a part of him that understands the human suffering and he wants to solve that. But then there's another part of him that's almost mechanical, robotic.
Yeah.
That, underplays the human side of it. It's like if robots can do everything, then that's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but the robots should be built to serve humanity. Like, what's the point of having robots if the human life is not improved? Look, this is not a character judgment of people. I think we have to understand who people are, and we have to, know how they're going to behave because of that. We can go back in history, right? Look at the lives of Albert Einstein or Nikola Tesla. I mean, Nikola Tesla was obsessed with the technology that he was working on. And, the rest of the world didn't matter to him.
Yeah.
Edison, on the other hand, was an inventor, but he cared for money and fame and power, and Tesla didn't. Tesla just cared for technology, right? And Edison was much more successful on the business side and whatnot than Tesla was. Tesla died like kind of relatively penniless.
Interesting.
But that's what drove him. So I think we have to know what we're dealing with. And to be honest, I say all of this knowing I'm not any one of these guys. I'm not Tesla, Edison, or Elon Musk, or whoever. I'm an investor. But my job, as much as it is to find the best companies and invest in them, I think my job is to be a guide, advisor, partner, sort of a psychologist to founders, helping them think through when things are tough, not only business tough, but they go through personal struggles. And it is not easy for anybody to fire people, but they have to do that. So they struggle with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they start a company with their best friend, and then they realize that I have to let this best friend go. Like, he's not the best CTO of the company. How do I do that? Sometimes they have to realize for themselves that I started this company. I built this. I did everything. But they have to understand they may not be the right CEO of the company going forward. How do you deal with that? And I think that's where good investors have to have the, as I say, integrity to be honest. So do you trust me? If you're a founder that I work with, that you trust me, that Bilal's got what he's saying is what he means. He's not giving me some bullshit to get me to agree to whatever his agenda is or what he wants. And then also the humility of understanding what the other person's going through.
All right. Very interesting. Are you hardcore on some aspects of your professional life?
Look, I expect a lot. People have often told me that I, not only do I have a high bar, I always worked in I've worked well in teams that are very high performing teams. I am not the person who's like, if somebody's struggling, to go in and sit with them and help them. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's just not me. You're not the right fit for this organization. I'm happy to help you find other people who can help you, other organizations. I'm a nice guy. I like to be a nice guy, but I like to have the A team with me. SEAL team, just go execute.
So when did you create your own VC firm? Was that a year? Yeah, okay, this year.
So I announced late last year in December that I'll be leaving Lux after 11 and a half years at Lux. I was a GP there, and it's a very friendly relationship with Lux and myself, but also with General Catalyst, which is another firm that I was at before Red Glass. But I realized that the time was right to build a new kind of a venture firm, a fund that was focused on early stage, but also not just, placing a lot of bets and spray and pray as people may do, but to be a real Sherpa to some of the best founders, building some of the most important companies in these spaces.
And so you raised 150 million, was it?
That's the target for my first fund, okay. Yeah. It probably ends up becoming a little bit larger, but...
Oh, yeah, okay. It's almost done, is it?
Yeah.
Like this, boom.
I mean, didn't feel like that as I was raising it. I started fundraising, and then the Liberation Day happened.
All right.
All the world got tariffs imposed, so that was not fun. But I'm very grateful for all the LPs that have supported me so far.
They all come from the US, most of them?
Actually, no. one LP is probably a few blocks away from here.
Oh yeah, did you work with Michael Benabou? No, or with no? I'm not sure. I see.
No, it's
Clément Lamolinerie. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, with because I helped them to raise money for some of the funds. I'm glad. So I a lot of my friends have invested.
So I have French LPs.
Yeah.
I have French LPs. I have Swiss LPs. I have LPs from the Middle East. I have LPs from Asia, and obviously a lot from the US.
Okay.
This is by design. It's not just people. I like Bilal, or it is by design that I want to have a global set of LPs.
Their play actually was, so when they came to me to have them raise money in France and within my network, was that they were trying to scout the guys leaving funds, like the stars leaving funds to create their own. So you're right in the middle.
Yeah. I think it's a great strategy.
Yeah.
Not because they invested in me, which is great, but I think it's a great strategy because early funds usually deliver great returns. That's just historically, that's been true. The people who are leaving large funds typically have a network, a track record, so you can actually look at what they've done in the past and see who they know and what kind of deals they would likely get into and so on. So you can also do your own independent work rather than just trust the investor. But also, especially recently, there's been a lot of people leaving large funds that are very experienced. So it used to be that some really ambitious young person who was at a big fund for 3, 4, 5 years would say, hey, it's time for me to start my own thing, almost like an entrepreneurial thing. But they've only had 3, 4, 5 years of experience at a big fund. But now what you're seeing is people with 10, 15 years of venture experience are leaving. Typically, those people never left.
Yeah.
But now they're leaving to start funds. So they're coming in with a lot of experience, a very big network. They are very good at not only investing in businesses, but they also have a very sensible, responsible approach to the business of investing.
Bilal, is there a risk that those guys are the same as the one in the automotive industry you were talking about earlier on, that they have, I don't know, some biases, or I don't know, maybe...
For sure they have biases. For sure. I think just like as a startup in a venture fund, you build a portfolio. I hope every LP builds a portfolio. So the portfolio cannot be just investing in, you should be invested in a fund like a Sequoia or a Kleiner Perkins or General Catalyst. But if that's all you do, then you're leaving stuff on the table. Then you should be investing in funds like mine, right? But there's also some kid who's 22 years old who has a tremendous network at Stanford or Oxford or whatever. You have some of that as well. I think it's a portfolio approach, for sure.
Interesting. Tell me very quickly before you explain me where you want to invest. What are what do you see for the future? What is the average, the company, the average investment you see? Is it very early stage? Is it Series A? Is it before? Is it seed?
So I'll be focused on early stage, which is to me, from formation when the company's just getting started, but it's almost like incubated with me, or just I'm the first, even person to help them, incorporate the company.
Then you would put like $1 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just made an investment, $1.5 million, but it could be even less.
And that's when you create...
I've invested in companies where I've invested a few $100,000 to get them going, because they're just one person. They just need money to get
it's
going.
Always like what, 15, 20%?
Depends, but in the 10 to 20% range.
10 to 20%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then all the way to Series A.
Okay.
Right. And the important thing here is.
And what's the Series? Sorry, Bilal. It's just so we compare with France. What's the Series A for you? What's the size and what's the ticket?
So let me explain this. The formation stage is where the company doesn't even barely exist.
Yeah.
Okay. Pre-seed is usually where the company has 1 or 2 founders, but nothing else. They have an idea, they haven't built anything, and they're raising, somewhere between $1 to $2 million.
Okay.
Seed generally is something where companies are raising between $2 to $5 million. Right? That number used to be smaller, but it has crept up to $2 to $5 million. At this point, the company has hired a few people, a couple of people. They have a prototype or a demo or something, but you're still believing. There are no customers or nothing very real yet. And then Series A is usually when companies raising between $5 to $15 million. They now have a product. They may have one or two customers. It's not fully reproducible yet. That here's a machine that's working on selling, but you're raising that amount of money. Now, I say all of this. This is what traditionally happened. Now, in USA, there's also Series A's happening that are $2 billion Series A.
Yeah, so that's why I was asking you, but
that's different.
Yeah, okay. It's like Mistral in France. You've heard about the Mistral AI. I mean, it's just like a Series A, 200 million or sometimes.
Those to me are very different because, look, there the bet is whether it's based on the team or the space or some kind of a geographical need. That is more of a saying, I'm anointing this to become my play in this space for the country or for the set of investors. Like, we as a country need this. So we're going to go do that. We're going to put a lot of money into it. You may even think of this as like infrastructure investments, right? Like you say, look, we need to have our first, hypersonic missile built. We're going to spend $2 billion building it. It may or may not win, but we're going to do it.
I've recorded recently with that woman, Rachel, on Génération It Yourself. She had raised $1 billion for trains, and because we need more trains, and she's a former SNCF, and trains are pretty good in France. So
I just took one last night.
Yeah, from where?
From Nice.
Oh yeah, so it was long though, but it's
6 hours.
6 hours.
That was great.
But yeah, it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
And so but the question was because recently, actually, is it a French company? They're based in the US. I don't know. They're French, but have you ever heard about Arcades.ai?
No.
They do virtual influencers. It's big. It's already big, and they launched a bit like 18 months ago. Not even 18 months ago. They are over 10 million ARR, and they raised like, I don't know if it's confidential or not, whatever. I would say 10 million, but they say it's a seed. And I'm like, it's a pretty big seed.
Look, 10 million, 5 million, 10 million. Look, the numbers keep changing.
Yeah.
Here's the big idea. I was with a few founders recently and who've been successful or who are successfully building very incredible companies, like worth billions of dollars now. And the thing we noticed was, and we said, there are not a lot of examples of companies that have become successful, that raised a lot of money early on. Companies that raise a lot of money create a lot of noise. I mean, take Mistral or Choose or whatever. Everybody talks about it. They've raised a lot of money. Everybody wants to go work there. They can pay great salaries. Everybody writes articles about them. They're on podcasts, newspapers. They go on the talking circuit and everybody wants to talk about them. And maybe they even get some customers because, everybody's like, look, Mistral has just raised $1 billion. Must be real. Let me go work with Mistral. Or maybe Mistral can give discounts and get the customer. Yeah. Things can start working. But there's something about finding real product fit.
100%, yeah.
That you don't get when you get overloaded with money early on. Now, it's one thing if you have to raise money so you can build a train, right? I mean,
she had to buy 850 million euros of trains. So
exactly. So that's a different thing. You're just buying an infrastructure or you have physical, thing that's needed. But when companies raise a lot of money, overwhelmingly bad stuff happens. You pay people way too much money. If you pay people too much money, there's a lot of people who just get very comfortable, right? They're not working as hard. It's just, this is what happened to Google. Like people I've had people who would work at my portfolio companies and say, hey, I just had a child. I'm going to leave this startup that you hired me into. Why? I want to go to Google. I want to have a little bit of an easy life. You're like, that's not sounding good for Google, but okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And at the end, it's very interesting. I'm just thinking, because we go fast and break things, right? And when you break things and you've raised $500 million, well, it's going to cost a lot of money, obviously.
Look, there are people who have $500 million to spend. Yeah. Like the one thing that I've learned over 16 years of venture is that I'm not fazed by, 15 years ago, if you said $1 billion, I would be like, wow. I'd be like, $1 billion, right? But now we hear about it all the time, right?
It's true.
There are billionaires all over Silicon Valley. So billions or 10 billions or, we now have multiple companies that are trillion-dollar companies, right?
Yeah.
NVIDIA was a few tens of billions of dollars worth. Now it's $4 trillion worth company in a few short years.
It's the French PIB, how do you say, a French net income, is it? Or yeah.
Yeah, but it's, so I think I'm less concerned that they will burn a lot of money. My view simply is that it elicits bad behavior across the board. People become careless. People become less focused on finding the right product market fit. They don't service the customers as well because they can afford to lose a few customers and it'd be okay. The CEO gets busy doing all these other things, all these investors who keep inviting them to give talks and blah, blah, blah. So the CEO is too focused on those things. I could name a lot of companies that are well-known companies in Silicon Valley where it's extremely terrible management because people are busy being, celebrities, right? Rather than tech founders.
Well, actually, that's something that is not happening at Mistral. I'm getting a hard time to get the CEO on my podcast, and it's maybe it's a good sign.
I think it's a good sign, but it's also there's a certain sense of responsibility. I mean, now Mistral is like representing, in some ways, the French tech ecosystem. So I think the founding team or the management team probably feels that pressure. Same thing I could say for Helsing on the defense side, right? Like it's a European company that's seeing that pressure. No, look, pressure is a good thing. I mean, money is not the only way. They should be. Pressure is good. We all perform well under pressure.
So with Red Glass now, that's the name of your new firm. You're investing from a couple of, few 100,000 to what? 10 million?
10 million, yeah.
10 million.
Yeah.
What's your obsession right now, Bilal? Where do you aim at?
So the thesis that I'm investing around is, building early stage companies at the intersection of AI and the physical world.
That's what I've read.
Okay.
Yeah.
AI, we all know what's happening in AI. And I have
is it too late? Like AI is, it's too expensive?
No, not at all. Not at all. Here's my thesis on AI.
Okay.
When I came to the US in 1995 as a student immigrant, internet had just arrived from Pakistan.
Okay.
Internet had just arrived. Netscape moment was November, December 1994, if I'm right. And internet, as you and I have seen it grow over the last 30 years, is, there's obviously the data centers, the cloud, the compute, the connectivity and networking equipment. Then it was, all the applications on internet and websites, and then it was mobile apps and all of that stuff, right? Like, so a lot of stack got built over time and big companies came out, right? Just cybersecurity companies for the internet are worth $100 billion. And obviously all the Facebooks or Twitters and all of that stuff. But the most important thing, if you really abstract it all, in my opinion, what internet did was reduce the cost of communication to zero, asymptotically. Internet was expensive in the beginning. Today, you and I could do a free Zoom call while walking in the streets of Paris, right? Real-time communication. The reason we can see an Uber app, the car move every few seconds, is because the data packets that are going back and forth cost nothing.
Yeah.
So you can see the car real-time move. Oh, it's coming. It's just around the corner. And that led to trillions of dollars of value creation in the economy.
Trillions.
And it took over a period of time, right? Like there was the early companies that were built in 1996, 97, 98. Google came in 1999. People sometimes forget that Facebook came in 2004, right? But Facebook came and iPhone did not exist. iPhone came in 2007, right?
They had to pivot the company to become mobile first.
Yeah. And when iPhone came, it was iPhone 4 that came with a GPS, which led to Lyft and Uber thinking, wait, if I have a GPS, I know where you are. I know where I am.
Was it the 4? Oh my God.
Think about it. Like it was iPhone 4 was the first phone with a GPS chip in it, right? It wasn't even iPhone 1. And iPhone 1, you couldn't do copy paste, right? And which was like, everybody's like, I can't do copy paste. How do I write emails if I can't do copy paste? So, and then came these old companies like Uber and Lyft and Instacart and DoorDash and delivery and all. I mean, I come here, I open an app, I take a bicycle, I just scan it, and voila, I'm on the street and, the map is there and it's telling me where to go and I can see all of Paris in one day, right? You can do that. So all this happened over a period of time because the cost of communication went to zero. Here's what's happening with AI. So people think of AI as these models or compute and GPUs, and there are going to be all these applications.
Intelligence.
It is the cost of intelligence going to zero.
Yeah.
Right? So you and I are constrained by the number of intelligent people we can afford to hire. Right? You have the studio. You hired a bunch of people to help you set this up.
Yeah.
Right? But there's only so much you can do. Right? But if you didn't have that compute limitation, what would you do? I use it in my industry in the following way to explain this to myself. Andreessen Horowitz comes on the scene, maybe 15, 16 years ago, and they created the service model for the venture capital industry. And the idea was that we are going to hire a lot of people who can provide you service for expert opinion on things that you need for hiring, for marketing, for pricing, or whatever that might be. Because Andreessen Horowitz built bigger and bigger funds, they now have a team that's 500 to 700 people.
My God.
Right? But they could pay a lot of those people.
How many at Red Glass?
One.
You're solo?
One. I'm hiring my first employee as an investor. I have a CFO, I have an EA, but my first investor is joining me next month, and then I'll be hiring 2-3 people. But here's the thing. A fund my size, $150 million fund, can maybe hire 3, 4, 5 people. Right? And living in Silicon Valley, the kind of salaries you have to pay to get the best people in, I cannot hire 500 people. Let's be clear, right? So typically what a fund like Andreessen Horowitz could do for a founder, they would say, we can give you so much, right? We have 500 people at your disposal. They can help you in every which way. And I would be like, well, I can't do that. I have 4 or 5 people. But with agentic AI technologies in the future, I could have 500 agentic or agents working for me. You have recruiting help. I can deploy 10 agents on you looking for technical help, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, software engineering in this province of India. We'll go find people for you, right? We don't need a guy doing that, that's sitting in the room doing this. You want pricing help? We will build extremely careful models and research. I want, sourcing of deals. It's not just people talking to me or me going to events. It's like I have everywhere who's sourcing all things, who's left this company, who changed their LinkedIn profile, who connected with another investor. I have all kinds. If you could do that, the way you would build things are very different. Now, going back to where am I investing? There was a lot of industries that are very important industries. Healthcare, energy, automotive, construction, the world we live in. Right?
Food?
Food, agriculture. There are all these industries that were constrained by the scientists and the engineers we could deploy on them. The batteries that we use for our laptops and phones to the electric cars and the buses that I see are all electric here in Paris. They only improve a few percentage points every year because even the best scientists, there's only that many who are working on it and they improve it. But what if you could put 1,000 more engineers on it?
1 million.
Right? 1 million. You will see faster improvement in things, right? I mean, there will be some physical constraints, but there could be robotics doing experiments there would be acceleration of a lot of different things. And
virtual experiments also, yeah.
And if you could do that, then we could actually transform industries that previously were very hard to transform. Here's a statistic that most people don't know. All the engineering graduates every year, 40% of them are Chinese. Of all engineers currently working in the world, 30%, 25 to 30% are Chinese. Okay? We're just not producing enough engineers in the rest of the world. That's just a reality. Okay? So until a few years ago, I used to lament and I used to say, how do we catch up? How do we catch up? We don't have enough mechanical engineers, material scientists. We have nursing shortages. We have all kinds of shortages, right? Now I think, wait, maybe there's another way. I don't need to see a nurse for everything. There could be agentic AI or AI that's helping me figure out what my problems might be, what should I be doing. If you're doing agricultural research, I don't need to rely on a few people that can model the climate, the soil, the nutrients, This is all data that could be fed into AI models that are helping me optimize. It's a little bit like, making the best wine in Paris. I know nothing about wine because I don't even drink wine. But the idea is like this town and this locality has the right soil and the right temperature to give you the right wine. Do have companies in Silicon Valley that are changing the climate. They're changing the weather. Hey, I can make it rain when you want it to rain. I can change the nutrients of the soil. You could do that. Could you produce French wine in different parts of the world or different parts of France? That could be very interesting. I mean, you may or may not want to do that, but you have option to do that. I think that's the big implication. And I think that's a way bigger industry than where most of my VC friends are focused, which is effectively taking the companies that we created in consumer and enterprise SaaS space over the last 10, 15 years, and they're trying to recreate them using AI. So they're trying to figure out if there's going to be a new kind of a Facebook or a new kind of, like you said, influencers that are AI based, or can I do your accounting better? Can I do your customer service better? Can I do your legal documents better? That's fine. What those VCs are doing is they're basically taking all the companies that were created in the past and saying, can we do this better, faster, cheaper? I think there's a lot of amazing things that can be done there. God bless them. They should do that. I'm more focused on people who are saying, I'm going to change the world.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to do things that were previously impossible to do, or very, very, very hard.
Like you said, Uber prior to the iPhone with the GPS or...
Totally.
Okay, 100%. What do you think about Lovable? So which part of the world is it? Is it in the new part?
So I'm a personal investor in Replit, which is fine. I think Lovable is great too. I think all these companies are great because what they're doing is providing tools for people to have capabilities that they previously did not have.
This is insane. I created a website just saying on my phone.
My son's done doing that.
My God.
Yeah.
And you can do like, I've recorded with Anton Osika from the Lovable. And I mean, while we were recording, we were creating a business, literally.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, the fuck?
Look, Stripe did that 10 years ago, 12 years ago. If you had an online business, let's assume you're very good at painting at home and, your free time, you just make up paintings. And you say, I want to create an online store and I want to say, sell my paintings. Before Shopify existed, you had to create a website and, figure out how to market it and SEO and stuff, right?
I did that for years.
Matthew.com, right? And then you're selling it. But then you have to accept payments. And it was such a pain in the ass to accept payments.
Terrible. Yeah.
Right? Like I remember the days when you would have to, you would click on the pay button and it would take you to a PayPal website and you'd be like, this is a different website. Okay, but you enter all the information there, you click and then you wait. So the payments go through and then they send a message over to the website, originally send you back to the website. And now, like as I said, on Uber, they say scan the code on the bicycle. It scans the code, press one button, voila. It's yours. Drive. And then it says, end the right, press a button, end the right, and I'm done. Right? So the same thing will happen everywhere. Like you will have capabilities with coding that nobody had, and not just coding to make apps. Like right now, what Lovable and Replit and all do is simple apps or simple businesses. Tomorrow, you could become a material scientist. Think about it. You could sit there and you say, what I really want is a battery that that could be waterproof, so I can use it because I go diving and I have this camera that I use and I want it to be waterproof battery. It needs to last so long. It needs to have this shape because I'm fitting it into my helmet. You're designing a helmet. You're designing a gear. Right now, you wouldn't be able to do that. But tomorrow, you can start optimizing and designing, right? And that becomes interesting. Like the opportunity, the design space is going to open up in so many different fields. So that's the beauty of it.
So when you say AI with the, how do you define it? With
AI meets the physical world.
Okay. So that means I've read that early on working on this podcast, I was thinking more or less robots, right? Which is not. When you say meets the real world, you mean like Uber. I mean, in the past. It's
change
like,
the real world.
Yeah.
I mean, the way to think about this is, look, Jensen Huang talks about it, that we've gone from, AI that was really understanding image recognition and so on. Then we went to GPT moment, which was generative AI.
Yeah.
Then we went to agentic AI. And then he says the next phase of this is physical AI. And the physical AI to him is AI embedded in the real world, which is robotics, autonomous cars, and so on. But it's actually more than that, right? When right now, at least in the US, I don't know how it works in France, but if I'm sick, like I'm feeling not good, for last 3 days, I've been feeling headache and I'm like feeling nauseated. I don't know what's going on. What do? You call your doctor, you set up an appointment. The doctor says, unless you're dying, come in 4 days and come see me, right? Something like that.
And then you feel better and then you don't go to the doctor.
Correct. Or most of the time, you don't even, I'll be fine. I'm a young guy. I'll be fine.
And then you die.
Sometimes it becomes something dangerous, right? I've had friends who thought that, my shoulder's been hurting, maybe because I work out, but it's hurting for a month.
Is it the left shoulder?
Yeah. And then you turn out, it could be cancerous. It could be bone cancer. So I had a friend who lost his life because of that, right? But in either of those circumstances, the bottleneck is what? A physical doctor. A person that only has so many hours in the day, that can only see so many patients, can only spend, and in the US, we've gone from doctors coming to your house to see you, they used to do house calls, to now where a doctor comes and sees you in the room for 5 minutes. Like they're seeing a new patient every 5 minutes, right? How much can they do in 5 minutes? But that's okay. They've been trained now to do that. And if an AI can address all your questions, and it's like specifically trained and tuned, not only on medicine, but it has your data, your information. Why not use that, right?
Well, we all do that on ChatGPT already anyway.
Yeah.
I did that for a cream for my son, and I said it's going to work from 75 to 94% of time. I was like, oh, cool. And
yes,
all of my friends are using ChatGPT as a psychologist.
I 100% agree. And ChatGPT will give you a better answer than Google will, which is a shock to me. But here's the thing, right? If you remember, go back 20 years before Facebook and all these, there was this thing called ICQ. Messenger, instant messaging, right? Instant messenger was used, hey, what you doing? How's it going, right? But it also used, hey, you want to go out on a date? I'd like to meet you. You're across the hall. I saw you using IM. Let me send you a message. You want to meet? It was used for everything. Businesses, right? I remember 20 years ago building a business, and I would send to talk to the Chinese suppliers and do business deals with them. But then what happens is, so that's the ChatGPT right now. It's one thing that does it all. And then what happened was people realized within instant messaging, the thing that you need for dating, it looks very different than for your friends, and something for your parents, something for calling all your friends. Like, when, Skype started, it was like, hey, Skype is amazing. Why is it amazing? Simple UI, but also you could talk to multiple people.
Yeah.
You can get your family in 3 different places.
Video,
So I think the same thing will happen here. Like you will see all these amazing things 100%. Built.
My belief is that, when you see all of those waves of technologies, the big players are always in the same area. So you got the banks, and then you got the insurances, and then you got the telecom. You have also, I've recorded last year with the founder of Tinder, Sean Rad.
Yeah.
Dating is going to be, probably, I don't know how is it going to work though, because it's going to be like, I want to meet my future wife. Yeah, boom. Here she is. And okay, but how much do I pay for that? Well, maybe it's going to be expensive. I don't know. But this is mind blowing.
I think, look, this is not God technology. It won't know every answer to everything. Like, my wife and I, I can give my entire DNA pattern to this system, and my wife will, and can we still predict exactly what my children are going to look like and act like? Probably no, because it's not just biology, it's also environment, it's also what they learn, all that stuff. I don't think of this as like some, non-human technology is going to take over. No, it's just tools, right? Like I remember that, my mom growing up, if I said, hey, I would like this food hot, not cold, she would have to turn the stove on, put a pan on, put the food in it, turn it around for like 10 minutes to heat it up, and my loving mom will bring me warm food, right? And then somebody invented the microwave, or at least microwave invented and came to Pakistan when I was growing up. And when the microwave came to her house, she'd be like, oh yeah, great. Take the plate, put it in the microwave, turn it for 30 seconds, back to you. And it changed a lot of people's lives. And there's a lot of people who still probably believe microwave will kill you and don't use microwave. Sure, certainly the microwave food doesn't taste as good as, fresh food. But the point is, it changed everybody's life for the better. I can heat my food up in 5 minutes and be at a meeting and have food in front of me, And I think this is a tool. And AI is going to be a whole set of tools that are just way, way, way more powerful.
Okay. What are the first investment you've made?
So my first investment still in stealth, but it's in industrial cybersecurity space.
Okay.
And here's what's going on in that space.
AI.
AI. So what's happening is everything that we know cybersecurity, what that means, because all your devices, your phone, your laptop needs security because somebody's trying to hack into it to get your password or whatever. Right? In the physical world, what's happening is that more and more devices are coming online, right? Meaning everything is now internet connected. Now think of like a nuclear power plant. Think of the computer sitting there. Think of the machine, the motor that's running. It's internet connected because it has a sensor on it that sends the data to the internet. It looks at it and says, this motor is about to fail. So before it fails, let me go fix it. Because if it fails, it could be catastrophic.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is happening across everywhere. Our cars are internet connected, right? Our cars get a message from the outside, hey, your oil level is too low, or, you need a service here, or, let me upgrade your maps and all of that stuff. So the surface area of connected devices is becoming very large. All of that requires protection. Right? I mean, one way for me to hurt you would be to take over your car, right? I mean, just like I could take over your credit card and be like, hey, I've made transactions on your credit card and now you have to pay the bill. Or if not the bill, you have to go fight with the credit card company. What if I took over your car?
Well, and since my car doesn't need a key anymore,
yeah,
I can just not open it anymore. Or,
there've been times when there've been times when I'm sitting in a parking lot and Tesla message comes, hey, it takes 20 minutes to upgrade your software. Do you want to do it? And I press yes, and it goes, and the whole software is upgraded while I'm sitting in a parking lot somewhere else. I can sit here right now. My car's parked in California. I could open up an app and I can show you what's happening around my car because the Sentry mode is on, all the cameras are on. And it'll show me. It's like my home security system in a car. So all those systems are internet connected or becoming internet connected, and it's becoming more and more important, not only to protect them from smaller things, but like really state level things, right? This is something that we underestimate right now. This is going to be a real problem. A real problem would be that if a terrorist, instead of blowing up a bomb, does something, and all refrigerators from a particular company failed overnight. Guess what? Half of Paris that might be using this refrigerator would be having spoiled milk and fish. Or the economic cost of that could be very, very high. Power goes down, people will die in hospitals, right? If they don't have backup power. So it's and
if you can take control of one car is enough to be, a weapon, right?
So
you don't even need to have like all of the Tesla over the world. It's just one
you
or
can
two.
go drive it into, you've seen in Europe, there's been a lot of terrorist incidents where somebody would drive into a
public.
Now imagine if it was and we usually find out who's inside because either you catch them or they die or whatever. But, imagine if it's like an empty car that does that and taken over by a terrorist.
And so, how do you find those companies? I mean, because you guys, we're here. The next question will be, how do we work together? Why would you let OVNI some room into a seed round? Or,
so this is a very good question. So let me talk about the founder DNA that I want to back. It is very easy to start a company. You and I could start a company while we're talking here.
It's going to be even easier with that AI.
Yeah, like you said, you and I could come up with an idea, get onto Lovable, create the website, launch it, register it in the US. It takes $20 on the internet to do it. We have a startup, right? Turning a startup into a business is the hard part. A business has products that have customers. A product is only a product if it has a customer. A customer is only a customer if they're giving you revenue. Revenue is really only revenue if it has margins associated with that. I care for founders who are obsessed with the idea of taking their startup idea and turning it into a business and then a bigger and bigger business. And while they're simultaneously growing the business, the best ones are also growing the TAM simultaneously, right? Those are the things that start compounding. They compound past what I can tell because I looked at a market and a TAM and I invested in it. The founder starts building a business, starts growing into it, and I'm feeling very good about it. What I'm starting to notice is, oh my God, the TAM is actually bigger and bigger because he's building new products that are addressing adjacent TAMs. That's when you start to see companies that start to look like Figma or Stripe or Applied Intuition or, Anduril or all of those companies that, started with something that we thought was this big, but became very big. But these guys are obsessed about building a business. How business building happens is startups can appear sexy to people. That's not why the best founders go into a startup. They don't go in because they think they want a sexy job. They go into these companies. The best founders can get a job anywhere, right? Like they're just smart, they're brilliant, right? Like you and I would hire them. But they usually obsess about something in and around their lives that you and I don't think very much about, perhaps. I meet founders who are comfortably working at OpenAI or Anduril or DeepMind or Palantir. But, they've been there 5, 6, 7 years. But when they were kids, they really wanted to be a doctor. But they never went to medical school. Or their mother died of cancer, right? Or they grew up being very environmentally cautious. So they care about the environment. But they feel like frustrated that all they can do is just do separation of metal from plastics at home, right? Like something more than that.
They just need to get into the game, right?
It's good example of that are all these people young kids who went to work for Elon Musk when he went to Doge in Washington, D.C. There were all these young people who were working at amazing companies. They're some of the most brilliant people we've got. But they felt aligned with the mission that, I want to do something important in life. And they believed in what Elon was doing, whether you and I agree with that or not. And they all ended up in DC doing things, right? That sort of, alignment around a mission is really interesting. So when I meet people, I look for 3 things. One, do they have high horsepower? Right? Are they just like, you can meet people and you're like, dude, this guy is like just jumping ahead. Like, he just wants to get so much more done than I can, right? I mean, clearly these people are almost on every dimension better than I am. The second thing I look for is, do they have a passion? Do they have something that they obsess about? Right? They can obsess about cars, they can obsess about compute, they can obsess about dating, they can obsess about semiconductors, they can obsess about cybersecurity, they can obsess about China and, international order. I'm sure you find people here who obsess about the fact. Like, I hear this all the time. Like, I have a company in Italy and everybody says, oh, all the money in Italy is made in northern Italy and the southern Italy is just a vacation spot. I am waiting to meet this person from Naples or Rome who will be like, fuck this.
This is going to change.
Like, I'm not going to, like, why should the world be this way? Like, maybe it is today. Like, more money gets made in Milan than gets made in Rome. But there's some kid somewhere in Rome who's going to come up with, that's not true. Rome has something amazing to offer, and I'm going to build the next big company. I mean, Mistral is that way, right? Like, all the AI companies are going to be in California, and then Mistral says, screw that.
No,
I'm going to build that here.
We have great engineers here.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, AI would not exist today if it wasn't for what, French researchers. Like, they kept this field alive, right? And so I think they obsess about something, and I look for that. And then the third thing I look for is, do they understand how to build a real company? That's, you and I can imagine, imagine me telling you that, hey, Matteo, we should build this thing called the pyramid. There's going to be this giant body of work. It's going to be square at the bottom, pointed at top, thousands of foot tall. And you know what? It's going to be so amazing that even thousands of years from now, people are going to buy a ticket to go see it. You're like, that's an amazing idea. I'm like, yeah. And I'm going to be known as the founder of the pyramid idea guy, right? But then I have no clue that what it requires you to do is to first figure out where do you get this big rock, stone, and drag it in the middle of the desert to put it there, then drag the second one and the third one and the fourth one. Now, what happens is that in the startup world, as I've seen thousands of founders, you sometimes find people who are good with ideas. The pyramid is the big thing, and you're like, great, but they don't know how to build a pyramid. They just come up with an idea and they hope that somebody else can build it.
Yeah.
Or there are people who know how to build a pyramid, great engineering talent.
No ideas. Yeah.
But they don't have a big idea. You give them a pyramid's base that's square. They can't figure out that the best thing to do with that is not to build a square thing that goes on top, but to build this pyramid structure because that will look magnificent, right? And So those are the two types, and the best ones are those that can do both. They can think of the big idea, but they don't get lost in it. They're like, we can also execute and build.
Sometimes you get some that are, even though I understand you don't like Google that much anymore, but
Google is a great source of talent. They train. It's like a university now.
What's interesting is that I believe that Sergey Brin and Larry Page were not the right people to build the company, but they understood that very early on, and Eric Schmidt came in. It can happen, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, no. So that story is a very interesting one, right? Because they were the right technical founders, because they were willing to do something that others were not doing.
They were obsessed also. They had the passion.
With that. Yeah. I mean, if you were just thinking as a business person, you're like, there's already 10, 12 search engines. You don't need another one. There's already, big ones, like Alta Vista and Yahoo, and, we don't need a new one. But they were like, something. It's a little bit like saying, hey, in Italy, there's already a lot of business in Milan. You don't need to build one in Rome. Or there's already a lot of LLMs. You don't need Mistral. Why do you need Mistral? Go do something else. We already got all these other companies, right? So they had that, but they knew what they needed. And what they needed was management. They understood that to run a business of what they were building, they will need to get, a lot of people. They will need networking. I mean, they hired Eric Schmidt for a reason.
Yeah.
The guy understood what networking gear and equipment and hardware looks like. Because when you're a search company, Google wasn't built because they had a website and just some algorithm. Google also built because they built the infrastructure at the back end to be able to serve you results really fast. You wouldn't care about Google if it was very, very slow, right? So it was all of that had to come together. And that's, I think, to me, is execution.
And how do you find those companies, those guys, those people with those three skills: as obsession, high horsepower, understand how to build a company?
Yeah,
where do you find? Do you have an AI? Is it coming on this podcast?
I use AI now too. There's three primary ways to think about this. One is, I've been doing this for 16 years, and I've been sowing seeds all across the world and all across the spaces, which are like founders and CEOs and others who send me smart and interesting people when they see it. Usually what happens is that a person that wants to start a company early on goes to another CEO that's their friend or somebody they know and say, am I doing this right? Or who do you recommend I talk to? Maybe looking for a co-founder, or even before they look for an early investor.
Inbound. And
that's when people are like, hey, this idea, you need to talk to Bilal. Not only because he's a smart guy, but also a nice guy, and he will give you advice, and he won't steal your idea or be a jerk to you and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of inbound. The second thing that happens is thesis-based approach, where, either you yourself read something and starts triggering an idea, or somebody tells you something that connects you into some other world. Yeah, that's nice, but actually that you got me thinking about this other thing that could be really interesting. And that's where then I start doing few things. One, researching who's working in those spaces and reaching out to them and learning more about it. But it also is putting out content that says, here's what I'm thinking about this space. Here's what I've learned about this space. Here's what other people are doing in this space.
Where would that be, on LinkedIn?
Yeah, mainly? LinkedIn, Twitter, posted on Medium. It's a way of building what I call a feeding ground. So let's assume that you have a day job, whatever you do, but let's assume you obsess about eyeglasses. Nobody would know that about you, right? Like when people meet me, if I take this off, I look like a dorky Indian guy who probably codes for a living, wearing t-shirt and ordinary pants and sneakers, like nothing special about it, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, there are many people like me, right? And then I put this on and you're like, that's weird.
That's Bilal.
That's something unique.
Yeah.
Like I will never forget this name or this person because he's unique. There's not a lot of Indian guys who walk around wearing red glasses.
100%.
Right? And I think, you want to put that out there to tell people. And what happens is that others who obsess about the same idea then start coming to this watering hole.
So what Bilal is telling me is that he gets people to invest in their company thanks to his glasses, which is true, actually.
It's true.
This is insane. You know what? You're not 100%. The first
100%.
one. Actually, I had some guy, a French guy called Olivier Cotinat. You've never heard about him?
Yeah,
you know Olivier?
Of course.
So very tall.
Yeah.
And he's got these orange glasses. And he went on my podcast. And what's interesting on Generation It Yourself is that it's fun that you know him because he knows so many Americans. He has such a big network. It's insane. But Olivier, when he came to my podcast, I think he this magical thing happened is that the podcast is big, right? But after years, people still recognize him because of the glasses, and they say, "Oh yeah, I saw you on the podcast." And so he tells me like almost every month, every week that it's still happening. It's weird.
Look, I fell into this. Like I wasn't obsessed about glasses. I've worn glasses all my life. I was actually bickering with my wife, who thought I wear boring glasses. So I said, as almost like a anti to that, I put these on, and I walked into my office, and even though I had worn glasses for like 40 years of my life, for the first time, everybody's like, "Oh my God, these are great glasses." And I said, "What? People are noticing glasses on me?" So it became a thing. But here's the thing. Okay, think of me as a VC who's trying to market himself, who's trying to establish themselves. I'm trying to build a brand for my firm. I want people to recognize red glass. Like today, they recognize Sequoia or Benchmark or Mason Horowitz or General Catalyst or Lux.
Brand. You're working on the brand.
Yeah, I'm working on my brand.
Fantastic.
But it's not just me. Mark Zuckerberg, when Facebook went public, famously said, I only wear gray shirts. Why? Because that's one less thing for me to think about. I mean, really? Like, you have billions of dollars. Somebody could buy an entire, wardrobe for you. You don't have to think about your shirts.
Yeah.
At least the same shirt, same quality, same size, same style, but you can buy it in 8 colors, right? So you only wear gray. Hey, look at NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, right? Jensen wears a leather jacket.
All the time, yeah.
Right? It's like if you take a selfie with him, people now, because it is a lot of people who are taking selfies with him these days, but everybody's like, if the poor guy's caught ever not wearing a leather jacket, everybody's like, now you got to go back and take another selfie with him with the leather jacket because it doesn't count if it's not with the leather jacket. I think it's great. Like I feel, branding and messaging, and it's not just visual things. It's also like, do you want to be branded as somebody who's an intellectual? Do you want to be branded as somebody who's a very, founder-friendly, lovable, adoring person? Do you want to be branded as somebody who's a hardcore, like Elon Musk type? Like we've probably said Elon like 100 times on this podcast. But like, do you want?
I want to be branded as Brad Pitt. I think it's
there.
The
you
best.
go.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. I'll give you a person who's exactly like that, right? Josh Kushner.
Yeah.
Josh Kushner was an intern at General Catalyst when I was there.
Yeah,
and I was working there, and he was. Even though he was just a grad student at Harvard at that time and he would come over and work, he was the most well-dressed intern I had ever seen. Like all of us would show up in like stupid t-shirts and he would walk in with like an Armani suit that was perfectly fitted to him. And we would never, I didn't know at that time that Josh Kushner, A, came from a very rich family, or B, will become one of the most successful VCs. But I will never forget Josh Kushner, the guy who wore Armani suits.
You have to get your thing, right? It's interesting. I love this. I really love this. I'm going to let you go very soon, Bilal. But I had that question. How do we make this happen? We're trying to work also at OVNI with the best partners, the best co-investors. And I think we've made our way, at least in France already, within the best investment. I mean, sometimes we find it interesting that even with some Americans, it happened in the past, but we're trying to get our share into the deals when they're very hot. How do we make it happen with you? Why would you invest with us?
I'll tell you. The industries that I invest in, physical world industries being disrupted by AI, these industries, unlike many others in traditional tech, they tend to be global, right? The largest automotive company besides Tesla is not necessarily, it's not a US company, right? The battery makers are all in China. The semiconductor companies are in Taiwan, right? If you're doing nuclear work, right? I mean, France has a huge history of nuclear compared to the US. We built our last nuclear power plant like 60, 70 years ago, right? If you're working in industrial products, you have German companies and you have Korean companies, right? If you're building shipbuilding, right? I mean, we don't build a lot of ships in America, but the rest of Europe and Asia does. So companies that I invest in tend to very quickly become very global. It used to be in traditional tech that first you build your business in the US and establish it there. Once you've done it and fully established, then you go to Europe and that doubles your TAM, right? And then once you've done Europe, then you go to the rest of the world, ROW, and that doubles your TAM again. That is not true in the industrial cases. I have a portfolio company, Applied Intuition. They have, their biggest customers are US, but also Japan and Korea and Europe, like all the major automotive, every major automotive company is their customer, right? They're doing hundreds of millions in revenues, profitable, global customer base, global team. Right. I have another company, Nozomi. Nozomi is a cybersecurity company, industrial cybersecurity company as well. When I first invested in that company, the company is now worth close to $1 billion. But when I first invested in the company, their first customers were Italian energy companies. Right. Then their second biggest customer they got was in Dubai. The third one was a cement manufacturing company in Mexico. Now they have on 5 continents, they have players. Right. Similarly, in defense tech, right? Very quickly, you have now NATO and, France and Germany and Italy are expanding their budgets and spending more money. And so you've got to be here. You got to partner here. You can't just show up and be like, give me money as a customer. You got to have a presence. Like these things industry where people like, are you creating jobs in my country or what are you doing? So I think in these sectors that I described where I will be investing, the markets are global. The founders are global. And, yes, there's an advantage to being in Silicon Valley. Things move faster. Right? There's a certain culture. It's easier for me to help these companies. So while it is very likely that majority, if not most of the companies that I invest in are US-based, all their customer base is going to be global. And as I do that, I will want partners who are both investors in me as LPs. Like I mentioned, all my LPs are global LPs, but also co-investors with me, that they have a global footprint. Right? Like if they're entering the French market or they're entering the European market generally, reaching out to somebody like you who's on the cap table to say, who should they be talking to? Right? Like who are the investors they should be talking to? Where do they find this team? They're looking for a GM. If you're hiring people in Japan or Korea, you can't just show up and be like, let me hire a GM in Korea. You need to have somebody who really guides you, advise you, who's the right personalities to hire and where do you hire from and deal with that. So I think you will, certainly it is important to me. And we should be doing more things together. But also generally, I think in this space, you will see greater collaboration. I actually, I do have something else that I heard about on this trip, talking to one of the investors. They said, you look in defense tech, especially we were talking about defense, and he says, in France, we do deals, we want to do investments where we can invest $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. But the best companies that are starting up, US funds come, the big funds from US, and they give them 50 million, 80 million, 100 million. Like we can't even compete. We can't even compete. It's like, it doesn't make any sense for us to even invest in them, right? Like if somebody's raising $50 million, how are we going to
get a $2 million
what
ticket?
Does our $1 million ticket do for that, right? And I said, that's fine. There are 2 things to keep in mind on that. One, as I mentioned, companies that raise a lot of money early on, they sometimes, in fact, most often get vanity points, but it actually takes away from their hustle. It doesn't, it actually makes it more difficult for them to succeed. There's so many examples of that. Think of Wag the Dog company, right? They raise hundreds of millions of dollars. All the companies that SoftBank put money into,
my background is bootstrapped, so I totally understand that.
Like it's just, at the right time, you should get the capital, but only when you've really figured out what you're doing. So you can really double down on it.
Not just because you're hot.
Not just because you're hot.
Yeah.
Right? But the second thing is that, he was complaining that there aren't a lot of Series A investors here because they just end up doing growth investing. And I said, one of the things that might happen here is you will start seeing LPs who are, as I'm raising money, a lot of LPs want to go direct as well. So one of the reasons they're investing in funds is to say, great, you will invest in good company, but if this company is an interesting company that starts to raise money, I will go direct and invest in it.
In the next round.
Into the next round of that company. And I think we will see that before you end up with a lot of Series A and B funds, because that takes a long time, LPs are already there. They already have the money. A new fund to raise $300, $500 million fund will take a long time.
Plus, most of them, a lot of them are experienced now, which they were not 10 years ago.
Yeah. But they have been doing growth investing. Like they will do Series C or D. It's easier for them to move a little bit earlier in B and 100%. Even maybe in A to partner with you. And I think so. I'm interested also in so the reason I bring that up is not only that let's say a company is raising $10 million, I'm writing a $6 million check into it. Let's assume there are other investors in the US that are doing $2 million. Call you and say, hey, there's a little bit of space available. Do you want to put in? And you say, sure, I'll put in $1 million, making up numbers. So you put in $1 million. Why would I take your money into that company? Why would this founder, when they ask my opinion, I'll be like, you should definitely take their money. Why? One, access to European networks, talent, customers, all of that. Obviously, all this stuff that you do that's like real value add for founders that they otherwise
the best network in Europe. Best
network. And it does matter, right? Getting their word out, but then helping them build credibility for themselves because nobody cares about them. But they show up on your show, people are like, whoa, there must be something. Like, why is he interviewing them? There must be somebody. But also the network you have in your LPs and your investor base, like other VCs, other GPs, other LPs, That's, I think it takes a village approach is how venture has worked. One of the reasons I started the fund is because I realized that the venture world has bifurcated into two. On one side, you had a lot of very small funds, like $5 million, $10 million, $20 million funds. And they're just basically buying lottery tickets. They're writing small checks, 100, 200, 500K checks into companies without even thinking too much about them. They meet somebody 5 minutes later, they're like, I'm in. You're awesome. Right? Which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. I'm an LP in some of those checks or some of those funds. But the founder doesn't get a lot of support from them. Right?
No support,
on the other side, funds that were successful over the last 10, 15 years, all the big names we know in Silicon Valley, they all became super big. Right? They're raising now $1 billion, $2 billion, $5 billion, $10 billion funds every cycle. So for them, they cannot spend time on $2 million, $5 million checks, let alone $1 million, $2 million checks, right? So you don't get the attention from these funds when you're an early stage company. So the middle is missing. And this middle is a big place where funds like mine and yours and others, we used to collaborate together. We used to form syndicates and invest together. In the big funds, what's happening is that they will do seed. If you're doing well, they will also lead your A. If you're doing well, they will also lead your B. They will also have growth funds. There's a benefit to that. Don't get me wrong. There's benefit to having somebody that can give you all kinds of money. But what it takes away is the building, the village working together to support you. You're completely then dependent on this one fund's ability to help you, not just financially, but also with their networks and their capital base. Whereas I think companies would be better off and they said, look, I want a lot of people involved. I want, if nothing else, to hedge against the fact that, hey, Bilal may not be able to raise a second fund or may not like me anymore. Or, I may have a tough time. I need a bridge round. How do I get that done? Or I'm growing into Europe. I want money, right? Like from European investors. Or I want sovereign wealth funds. Who knows sovereign wealth funds that can introduce? So I think there will be a lot more collaboration going forward among funds that are not already $1 billion. The multi-billion dollar funds, they're becoming capital providers. They're no longer venture funds, really, in some ways. We're like a bank. Come to us. We can give you all kinds of capital, valuable, but different than traditional
Even
venture.
for LPs, if you want to get into that, you have to come with $1 billion sometimes, or it's going to be,
many billions.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're going to them primarily for money. And people are coming to you not just for money, but also your network, your advice, your guidance, and your help.
Yeah, 100%. Bilal Zuberi, it's Zuberi, right?
Yeah.
We can find you on LinkedIn, on Twitter, you say on X, so you still publish and write on Medium. I've lost track on Medium for a long time. Would you give me? I'm going on holidays tomorrow. It's my last. I have a meeting right now, but what should I read? One book.
Oh, I was thinking of, as I was writing here, somebody asked me a question about that, and I asked them to read Dario Amodei's essays on ethics of AI.
Is it recent?
Yeah, he's been writing regularly.
Okay.
And his works are very thoughtful. Very thoughtful. Not only because he talks about technology and where the world is going, but it's called Machines of Grace was the first essay in that series. Because it really helps you also think about, what does it mean that machines around us are going to be active?
All right.
This is a dumb surface, this table in front of us. But this could be an active surface. This surface could be telling you that I like to lean on, I like to step back, the distance I sit on, where are things placed on it, the water's fallen on it, let me adjust accordingly, whatever. If this becomes an intelligent system, this room becomes an intelligent being, how does our relationship with this system change? It's still a room, still protects me, but it's active. You are right now manually controlling the AC on and off. Doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah,
you should feel that. Are you feeling cold? When I feel warm, you and I know, start to perspire, right? It should automatically freaking recognize that Bilal is now not comfortable. Let me change the temperature. Now you may be uncomfortable because you're feeling cold. There should be a room that says, we take so many things for granted that the dumb systems will remain dumb. It shouldn't be the case.
Where do I find those? I just
look up Dario Amodai, Machines of Grace.
Oh, Machines of Grace. Yeah. Okay, great.
And it will take you
Machines of Loving Grace. Is that it?
Machines of Loving Grace.
Okay, great, fantastic. Well, that was amazing. That was longer than expected. I'm trying to improve myself, but I can't be short on those podcasts.
Love it.
Thanks a million.
Thank you,
I'll
sir.
let you go back to your family. It was fantastic.
Merci beaucoup.
I'll come to San Francisco and meet you someday.
We'd love to see you there.
And I'm off to Corsica tomorrow. Have you heard about Corsica?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the best place in the world.
Frédérique Dame, do you know her? She was an early Uber employee, partner at Google Ventures. She grew up in Nice. Her family lives in Nice. And she was in Nice when I was there, and she was heading to Corsica herself. Yeah. So you may run into her.
Okay. Fantastic. Bye-bye, Bilal. Bye, guys. If you like this podcast, if you're new to this podcast, you can share it to friends. You absolutely have to click, register or like button and come on YouTube, find us, and we'll be happy to see you. We have a few podcasts in French, but now we translate them and it's subtitled and it's very interesting in French too. Come on, guys, come with us. Bye.